Watts' mistress, Nichol Kessinger, blowing him kisses and professing her love for him.
I am having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me, and I'm glad that you're having a blast. I am so out of breath.
The video, recorded just weeks before Watts murdered his wife and 2 daughters, was uncovered by Peltz, is the show's producer.
There's photos and videos of them on a secret trip to the Great Sand Dunes while Shanann and Chris's 2 baby girls were away on vacation.
There you go, baby.
That's Watts you hear behind the camera.
You're so damn sexy.
HLN also obtained voicemail messages Nichol Kessinger left for Watts. She giggles like a schoolgirl.
Hi. It's me. I miss your face. I was just calling to say hi.
Watts also took these provocative photos of his 30-year-old co-worker. He stored them in a hidden folder on his smartphone.
He hides this on an app called Secret Calculator. It looks and functions like a regular calculator, but when you enter 4 digits, it's a secret vault. It opens up and it reveals hidden photos and videos.
Watts claims he came clean about the affair to his pregnant wife Shanann the night he killed her and their daughters. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave and dumped his girls in silos of crude oil. The mistress told cops she had no idea he was planning to murder his family.
This shocked me just as much as I think it shocked the rest of the world.
It started with an email, not a threat, not a confession, just a message from Nichol Kessinger to a man she barely knew, Christopher Watts. But that single email would open a door that should have stayed closed and set off a chain of choices that ended with a family gone, a nation horrified, and a killer blaming everyone except himself. Tonight, we're going back to the moment everything began, the very first email that connected Nichol Kessinger to Christopher Watts. A message that looked harmless, but quietly set the tone for a relationship that would reorder lives, reshape motives, and eventually be examined under the harshest spotlight imaginable. The email chain ends on June 12, 2018. It's a short exchange, but in the world of crime, sometimes it's the smallest details that reveal the most. It starts with a routine message from Kessinger. A simple work email sent to several people, including Chris Watts. She's asking for updates, following procedure. Nothing emotional, nothing personal. But Chris doesn't reply to the group. He breaks the chain. He responds only to her. Thanks, Nikki. Have a great rest of your day. June 5, 2018. It seems insignificant until you see what comes next. June 12. Kessinger emails him again. Chris, thank you for being honest with me this morning. Truthfulness is so underrated in our culture. Signed, Nikki. Just hours later, Chris writes back. I'm a straightforward guy. Lying complicates things. You're stunning. And from what I've learned about you so far, you seem like an amazing person. I hope to get to know you better. That wasn't workplace communication anymore. That was intent. 2 hours after that, she responds, agreed. I enjoy talking to you. I feel understood. And then the line that now stops people cold. I'm looking for someone to build a beautiful life with. Something similar to what you've built with your wife and those cute little girls. She follows it with boundaries, at least on paper, saying they should keep things professional and keep their conversations private. But that afternoon, Chris answers with absolute confidence. Yes, a beautiful life is hard to find. People always have agendas. Any conversations we have will stay between us. No need to worry. My work number is... He ends the email by giving her personal access to him in the field, something you don't do unless you want the connection to grow. And that is the moment investigators point to. The spark, the shift, the turning point. A relationship had begun, even if nothing physical had happened yet. And because of that, we now must examine not just what was said, but what each of them believed. Nichol has always insisted she didn't know the full truth. Not about the marriage, not about the kids, not about the reality inside the Watts home. She has never been charged and, according to prosecutors, she is considered a victim who was lied to. But the question of credibility hangs over every word she has ever spoken about those weeks. In court, jurors are instructed to evaluate a witness through their knowledge, their memory, their motives, their demeanor, and whether their statements match the evidence. And when you listen to Nichol, her pauses, her inconsistencies, her sudden flashes of recall. You understand why people still debate her role in this tragedy. But one fact remains undeniable. This email chain is where it all began. A work message, a selective reply, a confession of attraction, and a promise of secrecy. A polite exchange that would become the seed of a relationship powerful enough to alter the course of 5 lives and end 3 of them. A lot of people in the YouTube crime world have theories about Nichol Kessinger. Whether she influenced Chris Watts, whether she planted ideas in his mind, or whether her presence accelerated what was already unraveling behind closed doors. But speculation only becomes meaningful when we line it up against the facts. On the night Watts claimed he was going to a Rockies game, he wasn't. He was out to dinner with Nichol. The babysitter was home with the girls, and Chris went through the usual routine medication, instructions, reassurance. And that detail matters. Because if he planned to harm his children that night, why go through those motions at all? Why behave like a man expecting tomorrow? The babysitter later told investigators she saw nothing alarming that night. Everything appeared normal. So the question remains, when did he decide to kill his family? And why? What we do know is this. The idea that Chris killed Sean and to protect his children from her is a lie. A lie he clung to only after police introduced it during questioning. If you listen closely to the confession, you hear a classic Reed interrogation technique. Investigators present a possibility not because they believe it, but because it gets a suspect talking. When they asked, "Did Sean and do something to the children?" Chris seized it immediately. He didn't hesitate. He didn't resist. He grabbed the story because it gave him a path to talk without admitting his own brutality. There was never any evidence that Sean imposed harm to her children. There was never any indication she snapped. Nothing. And investigators knew it. Then there's Nichol. During her interviews, both in person and on the phone, the detectives walk through her communication with Chris. She was messaging him up until shortly before Sean and returned home from her trip to Arizona. In fact, Chris called Nichol later that night. If you believe the relationship was casual, that detail alone should make you pause. What could they have been discussing in those hours? What kind of conversations take place on the same night a family disappears? When investigators examined Nichol's phone, they discovered something striking. Only fragments of the communication remained. Her emails, texts, searches, calendar notes. The phone dump revealed everything that hadn't been erased. But large portions were gone, deleted. Had those messages remained, we would have a clearer timeline. But even in the gaps, enough survives for investigators to understand the tone of the relationship. Messages about attraction, about being hooked, about Chris being all about his kids, about the sex, about the excitement. There's even a text where she warns a friend not to tell anyone about their relationship. And when these messages are compared to the timeline, something stands out. Just days before the murders, Nichol finally begins telling her friend about Chris. Is it coincidence? Comfort? Or groundwork? We may never know because the digital trail wasn't preserved. Nichol told investigators she deleted the messages simply to erase a man who caused chaos in her life. But shortly after wiping the phone, she also contacted police, offering information and cooperation. 2 actions moving in opposite directions. And that contradiction is what keeps so many questions alive. Why delete so much? Why reveal so much? Why call Chris on the night everything happened? And what exactly did he say? We still don't have those answers. But what we do have is a blueprint, a timeline of communications, actions, deletions, denials, and choices that all converged in the days leading up to a crime that shook the world. A lot of people who follow this case online believe Nichol Kessinger may have played a role in what happened. I'm not saying she did, that is not the point. The point is this. These are the facts. These are her messages. This is her phone data. And she is the one who admitted deleting communication before going to police, and then talked and talked and talked. Some say she talks too much. Others say she talks to protect herself. But the truth? That part is for the audience to decide. This case is nearing its final legal breaths. The civil suit between Shanann's parents and Chris Watts continues, But whether Chris responds or not is doubtful. We'll watch and see. The question many still ask is this: will Nichol Kessinger ever be re-interviewed? No one knows. Rumors claim she's in witness protection, but there's no credible proof. Nothing official, nothing confirmed. Just speculation from people trying to connect dots that may not even belong on the same page. But one detail is undeniable. A significant amount of information was withheld from public release. The discovery files provided were a stripped-down version. Enough to satisfy curiosity, but nowhere near the full investigative picture. We know there are more reports, more data, more photographs, and possibly more forensic work that was completed but never shared. Requests to the coroner's office brought nothing back. Not because the public shouldn't know, but because access to these materials is tightly controlled. And while these images would never be shown on YouTube, they exist. They document what happened in a quiet Colorado neighborhood, and they show, without filters or commentary, what human beings are capable of. Then there's the emotional trail, the cards Chris gave Nichol. Small things but revealing. A birthday card, a romantic card dated July 30th. Words that read nothing like a man invested in his wife or his unborn child. The first time I saw you, you took my breath away. The first time we kissed, I knew I was addicted. We have a lot of firsts together and I want more. So while Shannon, pregnant and raising 2 daughters, was building a family, Chris was writing love letters to someone else. And when you go back to that email from June 12th, the one where Nichol says she wants to build a beautiful life, similar to what he had built with his wife and children, you see the blueprint of something Chris believed he could not have unless his current life disappeared. Whether that idea came from within himself, or whether he simply believed it was the only way forward, we may never know. But every message, every card, every deleted text, every late-night phone call points to one undeniable truth. Chris Watts had already chosen which life he wanted. And in his mind, the life he already had, Sean and those little girls, had to be removed before the new one could begin.